XDC versus XVM, meme coins included. This is NC Hammer Crypto. My name is Neil, keeping technical analysis short and sweet. And if you haven't liked or subscribed, definitely do that now, as it is greatly appreciated. And starting with XDC, the reason this looks very good to me personally, keeping in mind none of this is financial advice, is we have the 618 starting from the bottom going to the top. The retracement is right here at 0.073, which when we slide on over right here on the 10th of September, we touch that exact 618 retracement. And if we invert this, we would consider that some strong resistance. We have this downward trend line that is resistance. The 200 EMA is resistance. Hitting that 618 right here is resistance. And we are starting to curve towards the upside. In this version right here, it is considered support, obviously, but we are starting to form towards this downward trend line. And if this breaks, what we are looking at for a potential increase in profit is the downward trend line is right around here, around 10 to 11% increase. Keeping in mind the average stock trader is making about 2% a month. 10% is astronomical for movements in the market, keeping in mind that the 618 is up here around 17%. So we could break through this downward trend line and then push up and then have a touch off this downward trend line, testing it as support before that move upward. And the next real resistance is nearly a 97% increase. All of this is looking very healthy. We are getting a little bit of volume. Personally, I don't have the RSI in here, but I believe the RSI is healthy, very healthy. We are building higher lows. We are crossing over the yellow. We are right at the 50. This thing is ready to take off, in my personal opinion. So with that being said, we're going to actually compare this to XVM. There is no RSI on XVM on this chart for me, but going off the basics, what do we got? We got an upward trend line right here. We need to hold that as support. That is very important. And we got a downward trend line, which was broken, which we could consider that as the area of retest if it does drop further. But the entire market is moving upwards with the news yesterday. And I believe this can be touching off this upward trend line and then start getting a little bit more support. The next thing we could do is draw an additional trend line for where it tapped previously. There are Gaussian fans and things like that. I can kind of show you an example. It's in here. Gaussian fan. With this, let's start from here. Similar pattern, trying to get similar line structure that is almost identical of what I had pasted out with the trend lines. This is roughly the range that we are going to be dealing with XVM. We could be testing this downward trend line, and once that breaks, this is roughly the range within this area that we would be dealing with. Maybe a little bit of consolidation, potentially testing off this upward trend line again. I could be wrong, and we could see this thing shoot up, and the previous high, roughly 0.025, we've seen it hit that before with a little pop up, but ultimately we need to see that be broken and held as support for that continuation upwards. Right now, XDC looks like a better opportunity, in my personal opinion. XVM is a little bit harder to get for people who don't want to deal with multiple platforms like Phantom Wallet and all that. But right now I am in XDC over XVM, even though XVM is an RWA for XRP, and I am all in, or not all in, but heavily in on XRP personally, and highly believe in its situation, so I may dip into XVM a little bit later. My battery's at 6%, so we're going to do DOGE real quick. It held that support over 24 cents. It had that retracement. You had your opportunity to enter, and now we are going to test the 29 cent again. I believe we are going to be closing above the previous 29 cent and start heading up towards the 35 cent, being the 618. We could even be pushing to the 0.41 or 0.48 with a quick movement upwards, as we've seen in the past back here in November. But with that being said, if you haven't entered Doge, definitely snag a little bit before it's too late, and you do not want to snag it at a higher price. Sapien, on its retracement, this is why we don't stack one bag, as it's a little bit more sketchy if you don't have previous history. But if you're trapped in there, definitely look about an exit strategy, keeping in mind that we are in the bull market. This thing could take off. I could be incorrect. Ideally, you want to be holding above this trend line and above the CM guppy, but there's not a whole bunch of information for Sapien. So definitely try and pick your winners and losers. There have been coins that have gone down in price when the bull market is going up and never come back. But just keep that in mind. Always diversify your portfolio when you can. I'm not saying sell all your Sapien and move to something else. Maybe wait to get a little bit in profit, as the market is going to be picking up here. But I don't know what the upside could be for Sapien. Cookie is something I entered when we broke this downward trend line. Not the best entry for me personally, but we are in profit as we broke that downward trend line, and we are not over that 200 EMA is the main reason why I should enter a trade. But I did enter early, just with a smaller bag, for the potential that this can rise very quickly. And I was expecting a little bit more bullish action with the news that came out yesterday. However, once we close above this previous high right here, we can start to expect to test this 200 EMA. And once that is broken and held, it is upward momentum from there. So having a position down in this low area is not a bad bet. Toshi, if you guys saw my short, 98%. In a moment we crossed this downward trend line, as I had explained in the previous video, had that major pump and a major sell-off. And I was stating in the video, wait for that sell-off to see where we'll test and hold support. We may hold support at this 0008, but there's a lot of volume that needs to flood in here to try and bring this volume up for new highs. So I expect we might even have a little bit of a sell-off. It's hard to justify because the market is becoming more bullish, but we want to see a lot more volume for Toshi to start pushing up. So if you did not enter whenever it broke this downward trend line, or have a buy entry above this area at 0.0007 roughly, you may have your opportunity here. Keeping in mind it is a meme coin, it does move both ways very fast. And we could essentially draw a downward trend line like this, and we could be working within this wedge potentially. So keep that pattern in mind when you're looking at the bigger picture. Getting rid of like this, for example, we are keeping this wedge because we want to see maybe it'll test the support yet again. But this is a prime example of when it breaks that downward wedge, it has a major pump, and that's what we clearly saw with Toshi. Giga, somebody asked me about Giga Chad. Not my personal favorite. Personally, I think there are better opinions, or better options, sorry. Obviously, there are better opinions than mine. Everybody's got their own, and other people would prefer whatever they want to hear. But Giga Chad is at its absolute low. There's no real reason to enter this if you are not entered already. If you are trapped within this, what you would be expecting, maybe 618 is right here at 0.06 cents. I think there are better opportunities like Dogecoin and Cookie, Toshi. All those are potential better opportunities than Giga Chad, but this is just something to keep an eye on. You want to get it over that 200 EMA before really looking for an entry. And lastly for this video, Floki is trying to test this 200 EMA. When it gets over that in this previous high, that is where you are looking for your entry, as it has a potential opportunity from this entry to here to be around 50 something percent. And that would be filling out more or less a cup and handle pattern, which could be pushing this up easily to the 0.00028 for Floki. It is a meme coin as well, so keep all that in mind. Good luck, have fun with it. All the references are in the description below, and like and subscribe if you haven't. See you on the next one.